Hi guys, welcome back. If you're new, my name is Tanel and today I present to you my full guide on how to fast for the skin, but also for the gut and for all the different benefits that we will cover in this video. We will also look at how not to fast, so common mistakes to avoid while fasting, and generally we'll just discuss how we look at fasting from my experience and from the experience of dozens and dozens of my clients. So therapeutic fasting, this stress-free, natural, calm way, is one of the best things you can do while you're healing your skin from eczema, dermatitis, psoriasis, acne, rosacea, but also other, blemishes, small imperfections with the skin. It's also one of the most efficient practices that you can use to your advantage when you are stuck in a lot of inflammation, bloating, just a chaotic, overburdened system. And to start off with, I just want to make clear that we are not following any trends. So lately, maybe now it's already subsiding, but a few years ago it seemed like everyone was doing intermittent fasting. Mainly it came from the keto community or the biohacking guys. Some people would just skip breakfast and then call that a biohack. There was also this section of this part of the internet of guys who are very into stoicism and discipline and intensity, and they would sort of compete with each other. Some guys would be fasting for 5 days and going to work and hustling and going to gym every day, and then someone else would say, no, I did 7 days. That's not what fasting is for us. In our context, in our perspective, fasting is just a way to restart, reset, rest, pluck yourself out of the routine, give your digestive system a rest, and to do it the right way. The main problem with fasting, with doing it the wrong way, is stress. That's when it turns into sort of a stressful thing, a neglectful thing, and you miss all the benefits. That sort of ruins the whole practice. And so already as we are discussing what it is, what it's not, for us it's not a trend, a fad, or following an influencer. We are following nature. And that is also how I actually personally got into fasting years ago when I was still healing my skin from eczema. I heard that animals, when they are wounded or sick, they would intuitively stop eating. They would retreat into their cave, or they would lie in the sun and they would stop eating to heal, just intuitively. And that sparked my interest, and I also remembered that the same thing is true with cats and dogs. And so why wouldn't it be true for humans? Before this, I had never gone for multiple days without eating, and I was stuck in a very bad place with my skin. Many of you know my story. 3 days of water fasting was just life-changing. What I experienced was that, many of my rashes, mainly on the fingers, but also somewhere like the inside of the elbows and eyes. Over the years, some of these rashes developed into open wounds, and they would always be oozing, very itchy and open. When it goes on for months and months without even being on and off anymore, it's just always on. It's very unusual to just see it grow together. Become dry at first, more elastic later, and you just regrow tissue on those places. Coming from that perspective, it's just life-changing. It's such a relief. And so this fasting just changed everything. After that first 3 days of water fasting, I ended it, I think 2.5 days, something like that, and we'll talk about how to start and end the fast the proper way. And that's when I got into this whole thing years and years ago. And so it has a very special place for me, especially with the background that I just explained. Just following nature, following intuition, and using it to your advantage. So we'll also touch upon this when we talk about how to start and end the fast. You don't just aim for 5 days. That's irrelevant how long it'll go. So once you get the real hunger, that's when you end the fast. We'll talk about that later. And even though all of my videos in the description have the sort of general, obvious disclaimer, I will still mention that fasting, especially prolonged fasting, should be done the right way. And one way to do it wrong is to do it when you are deficient, underweight, with a very special some sort of medical condition, or when you're pregnant, for example. This is not for you. Okay, not every video, not every post on the internet is for you. But if you are, like most of my clients, just looking for a very good, effective, natural solution for your skin problems, you don't have any of those issues, you usually are feasting, right? So when you're not fasting, you are feasting. You're eating the best foods, you're not deficient, you have a healthy weight, everything's okay, besides, some of those chronic problems like, let's say, bloating or gut issues, leaky gut, autoimmune reactions, allergies, skin issues, things like that. And the stress part. So before we go into the whole list of benefits, the way to avoid that main problem with fasting as a trend, as a fad, this main argument against it is stress. The definition of stress is when the demand outweighs the supply. Now that can be financial stress, that can be creative stress, that can be nutritional stress, or just, people who overwork, that stress. But with fasting, it's very clear. The demand is working, mental demands, being available for others, working out, all these, mainly working, okay? My point is, you do not have any supply, so you have to minimize your demands while you're fasting. That's the right way to have a fasting session. The easiest plan is to just take a weekend off. Plan a weekend, even when you're busy. You're always working, you don't have time for stuff like that. You're always stressed, and when someone says, do you know that stress actually causes these skin issues? You just go, yeah, but what can I do? This is what you can do. Take the next weekend off, do it for your skin, for an experience, and fill those 2 or 3 days with calm, with home spa activities, with reading books, with being slower, having walks, getting grounded, getting sunshine, doing all of those things that you think you don't have time for. What you don't do is work. That means you're not available for others to call up or to work. You're not doing even some mental work like editing or whatever. So it's not only physical work, it's also not mental work, right? So the way you minimize stress is, first of all, you already have supply from eating well in your daily life. And during the fasting now, you minimize the demand by being chill and calm and not working. We'll talk more about how to design this sort of fasting session for yourself the right way, the therapeutic way, the calm and stress-free way. And now to the benefits. So a lot of you are watching YouTube with the timestamps. Here is the list of benefits, the main ones that interest us as we are healing our skins and realigning our gut health. The main one that interests us is, of course, remission from skin disorders, mainly the chronically inflamed conditions like dermatitis, eczema, psoriasis, itchiness, allergies. So it goes on from that skin part into like gut health, right? So if you have autoimmunity, if you have leaky gut or bloating or low stomach acid, it's just a mess. And fasting is a good way to reset that. So you're already in this, what we sometimes call in consultations, like the witch's circle, like a spiral going down. One thing leads to another, it just feeds itself in a negative loop. Fasting is one way to pick yourself out from that loop. The same way that you pick yourself out from maybe a stressful life routine during those few days of fasting, the same thing is here. And so, you have a lot of relief from itchiness and from inflammation and allergic reactions. Now, that is something that makes us impatient. With fasting specifically, it's such a great relief to start from. So maybe you've already tried this and that. I was also one of those people. I thought I had tried everything. That's how I usually talked about my skin issues after, 3 years of experiencing it. I've tried everything. I've tried these diets and I've tried these creams. I've tried everything. Fasting is something I didn't try. Coffee enemas was something I didn't try. Eating certain foods like broths and organs, oysters, never tried that. Right? To get you out of that impatient, inflammatory state, it's a good thing to have that fasting session. That was my point. You get a lot of nice relief. And even if you've already done that before and you've fallen off the wagon, you've already progressed with your skin health, but you fell off the tracks, that's a good restart. Have another fasting session. Do it the right way, and the results you'll experience once again will lead you to more motivation and more dedication into the healing process. The next benefit is about rest and repair once again. Mainly it is for this overburdened system of an inflammatory, diseased body, right? Everything starts from the gut, and fasting is the most obvious way to just remove anything that is feeding into this overreactive state. And during this prolonged fasting, you will also have some regenerative effects from the practice of fasting on a cellular and tissue level. There's also some studies about, mitochondrial regeneration, so that also plays into that. We address those mechanisms in many different ways. It's not only the fasting, it's not only certain vitamins or whatever. It's also how well you sleep, or how much you get sunlight, or even how you look at yourself and the world and your relationships. That all play together into this thing. I keep repeating myself, but let's move on to the next benefit of fasting. It is autophagy. Now you'll hear this word a lot whenever someone talks about fasting or intermittent fasting and so on. Autophagy just means auto is your own, phagy is like eating yourself. That's the process of not starvation exactly, it is the process of using your dead and damaged cells to recycle that and clean from that. Right? So one way to visualize fasting, or the mechanism of what you're experiencing, is if your body is a hotel, and it really is, you have so many different microorganisms creating all of these processes, this chemical factory in your body, fungi, you have bacteria, you have yeasts, all of these different things on the top of your skin and inside of your gut and everywhere, maybe also toxins and allergens and things like that. And so if you're managing a hotel that visitors are coming in and out, but you never get any rest, you don't get any chance to go into the rooms and clean it up, what do you think is going to happen with the hotel? It's just overburdened. If there's a mess, no one, it will just get worse and worse and worse. Something similar happens with the body. And so this is just a way for the body to activate some of those really old genetic mechanisms, because back in the day you would get into situations like that. You would not eat at certain time of the year that much. That's why we have Lent. Okay, this is a completely different topic, of course, but we have different religions. In Islam you have Ramadan, in Orthodoxy you have Lent. Very often that, also in pagan cultures, so here in the north as well. Of course that would be tied to food availability. We would get to spring, you would run out of things that you stored for the winter. That's when you usually would fast, and it would go together with the spring cleanse. So that's why we have spring cleaning, for example, which is actually a very good time to plan your fasting into, but it doesn't really matter when you do it. I did mine in autumn and it worked the same way. So anyways, autophagy is about recycling damaged cells. And now, besides some of these more serious chronic issues that we usually talk about, we also have blemishes and zits. So maybe you don't have full-blown acne, but you have sugar pimples. That's something I sometimes have. You have a zit here and there, or you have, some people have premature aging. So we age, it's part of life, but premature aging might be coming from something problematic, right? You might get some wrinkles and blemishes and imperfections. What people often experience when they are fasting is that these things get soft and these things get smooth. If it's possible for you to fast once a month even, or once every couple of months, you can get rid of some of those problems over time. This therapeutic fasting that we are discussing is also very useful against autoimmune reactions, hypersensitivity coming from dysregulated immune system, or allergic reactions, and all of these different things that very often have common roots, so like leaky gut or whatever. But once again, fasting is something to experience. That's when you really know what we're talking about here. Of course, there's tons of books and studies, and I probably will add some on the screen and in the description. But what matters most is really that you can see that in nature, and you can see that from your own experience. And besides these blemishes and imperfections, you also have accelerated wound healing, which ties together to, animals and humans retreating to their caves when they are wounded or sick. because it helps wound healing as well. But rebuilding a healthy relationship with food, now that is really something that a lot of people can benefit from when they are changing their lifestyles, the way they eat. So it's not only just getting into a certain diet, it is about rebuilding a healthy, appreciative relationship with food. Now, very often we are coming from a place of overstimulation. We have a lot of salt, a lot of very strong spices, a lot of sugar, and things like that. What you experience very often is, first of all, you sort of get calm and humble, but also you start to appreciate the most bland foods. In my case, I started craving for some rice or some oatmeal or just something super simple. And after the fasting, and I've done this many times now, like maybe 5 times, something like that. Sometimes a day, sometimes 2 days, sometimes 3 days. For 3 days, I think I did 2 months ago or something like that. And once again, I experienced the new appreciation for bland, healthy food. So you don't have to get this overstimulating, sugary, salty, spicy stuff all the time. Fasting is one way to regrow that and to rebuild a healthy relationship with food. Because this process, as you know, is not as simple as building a cult of diets. It is more about exploring the world of nutrition, your body, and sometimes that can lead you to having to start with very bland food choices. You don't usually use a lot of strong spices when starting out. That's something you can reintroduce later in the process. But it's about customization, it's about a connection with your body, with understanding when you are actually hungry and when you're just habitually eating because you're bored. A lot of us have that tendency, me included. So during fasting, definitely me, but also others have experienced this change in appreciation. That's a good thing. And besides the physical part, you also organize your mental clutter because you get to rest from normal life during this healing process. You restart, you reset also your emotional and mental patterns, and you sort of stop the momentum of whatever it is you're going through, and you can start a new path. Once again, it's ideal for starting to heal your skin or restarting it whenever you gave up or life happened and you are looking for ways to just restart it again. There are many other benefits. You can look up studies about longevity, and you can look up studies about insulin and all those things, which is great, but these are the main ones I think that interest us, and it's something that you can actually experience yourself. Very often with these studies that we learn about longevity, how do you really know, right? We don't know how long we're going to live. It's good if it helps that's great. But what we're really looking for is something that you can actually directly experience. Now, how to actually fast? First of all, how to start a fast. We already mentioned that before fasting and also after, you are usually feasting, so you're eating well, you're not underweight or deficient and so on. So that's how you start a fast. You just have a nice dinner usually, and already starting from the dinner, you're fasting. So already when you wake up the next morning, you've been fasting the whole night. And then you just drink some water. You can have different waters. It's nice to have some mineral water, some carbonated water, some still water, something that is cold with ice cubes, something that is warm, but it's just water, right? Now, we have talked about, and I've written a post about how for hydration you need more than water, and here's something similar. So you can grab some high quality mineral water that works better usually. Also for energy levels and just how you feel, so you don't have this crash. And also mentally, because you are fasting, you're not expecting to have food or to be productive, right? So you slow down, and it's quite ironic. It's called fasting, but usually it's slowing. It really slows you down. The more you let it be what it is, the easier it is to fast. And the more you have this variety and acceptance that you just drink water, the easier it gets. Now, since you are not working, you might get bored, and we already touched upon how very often you get not real hunger, it's just appetite, it's just habitual bored eating. So what you do instead, you fill your days with all of the things that you usually say you don't have time for. You can go for long walks, you can go to swim gently, not too much, you can have a bunch of grounding sunlight, you can read great books. Like maybe you've always wanted to read Dickens. Now you have the chance to do that. And also on those long walks, very often what you get into is this lightness, because you're fasting, so you're more light, it's easier to breathe, you're more humble, because you don't have this excess energy and expectation. It's a very meditative process without having to force it. It just comes from inside. You get more retrospective, introspective. I just think it has so many different layers. Already before shooting this video, I was like putting together some thoughts on how to explain what happens, what you might be experiencing when you're fasting. You generally treat this time as a personal retreat. So you can do all of those different baths with the sea salts, you can do clay masks, just experiment with all of these different ways, egg yolks for masks, blood or liver for masks, breathing techniques and exercises, all of these different fun things that people usually think they don't have time for. Now is the time to do that. And you get to really feel into and embody the process of, okay, now I'm actually healing my skin. And that helps you after the fasting to also build that new momentum. And the most common things to feel or notice when you are fasting is your skin gets softer and smoother, especially when you are used to having very rough and dry skin, it gets softer and smoother. Or indeed when you have something that I had to deal with the oozing and open wound like eczema, you will see that it dries up. In my case, it was just amazing. It was like a miracle. You're just looking at those specific rashes and they just close up like a time lapse with every hour, with every day moving forward. You might also be feeling more, as we already touched upon, more light and humble and calm, understanding, forgiving. It really has, you don't have this urgency and irritation anymore. You have relief, also relief from itch. Some of us, I remember some clients with the consultations, with the one-on-ones, they would explain how they cannot sleep at all. And sleep is extremely important for healing the skin. And during the fasting, that's when they really got to sleep for a long time, and it was deep and dense and just consistent, beautiful, high quality sleep. Now, during the daytime, when you're fasting, you might also experience some coldness, because once again, you don't have any supply. You don't have generated heat from the food that you usually eat. So what you can do is have hot baths, sunlight, you can wear some nice soft clothing, you can wrap yourself up in blankets and read fancy books, fun books, watch movies. A lot of us have a list of recommendations from friends, but we never get to actually, watch the movies or experience that. Now is the time for that. And so it also has this emotional side to it, right? It's not only stress relief, it's also, you arrive somewhere. You get to pluck yourself out of the routine, the rush. So it's up to you to have a good experience. And now, very important, how to end your fasting session. Most importantly is that you don't have to chase a certain amount of hours. Like when you feel this specific real hunger, which usually feels like a metallic pulling sensation in the throat, that is your body telling you that it did what it had to do. It is ready to be fed, and don't let your ego come in front of that, right? So this is time to just ease into digestive mode again. You might feel like your gut is just dried up together because it's inactive, because prolonged fasting does that. Now, you do not want to gorge on a lot of food. I know it's tempting. Do not do that. It's very important that you ease into digestive mode gently. The easiest way to do that is using broths or stocks or soups. So something liquid, something that nourishes very gently, and it doesn't take a lot of space or work to digest. So easy to digest, small meals. Hold yourself back at first. Maybe it's possible for you to, maybe you feel that in the evening, so you can have a small, nice dinner and not go overboard, then sleep, and in the morning you can just eat normally. But also in the morning you do not overeat, you just have a modest, nice meal. And moving on, you just eat the best foods available on planet Earth. That is what we do here. So depending on whether you are restarting or just starting out, And maybe during the fasting you already had chances to think of what you're going to do after the fast. When you're rested, you did all these things, you already saw some nice relief and results. Maybe now you have already put together your action plan. And in my course materials you also have action plan templates for, you know, the busiest people to freelancers and students who have more time usually. And it's always up to you to design the life that works for you and heals your skin and customizes your lifestyle and diets and solutions and switches and all of those things. Once again, you know, everything that we talk about here, I love to take a piece of the puzzle and just elaborate on it, talk about it. The comment section is open, ask any questions you have. Let's just discuss everything to do with fasting. But as always, if you are serious about healing your skin, then the best way to do so is to follow the first link down in the description. That is my skin healing online course. I designed it in a way to contain everything you need to know, not more, not less, applicable, easy to understand. And these videos and posts just serve to elaborate on all of those details more and remind you and keep you in the loop, basically. As always, it's not only one certain thing that you do, fasting, and that's it. It's not only vitamin D. It's a mixture of all of those things. And very often it's not even a specific food, it's how you feel about the food. What is the quality of your thought? What is your perspective on life, on yourself? That has equal value to how you regulate your immune system, how you reset your gut health, and how ultimately you overcome the skin disorders and you start living life without them. So thanks for watching. See you down in the comments. And since it's actually a sunny day, I just blocked the windows. I'm going to go outside and chop some wood because it is springtime and this is time to chop down some trees from the backyard forest and make some firewood for the winter. So stay strong, stay consistent. The next video to watch will appear on the screen now.